you guys are going to have to work with me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I have things to work through in the context of the 2020 election that don't sit well with me. And they don't sit well with me because I got to be honest, I don't think in these terms. I just don't. Any competition I go into, I assume I win. I just do. Otherwise, what's the point, right? What's the point in going into a competition and assuming you're going to lose? You assume you win. You do everything in your power to win. And in the case of losing, you do everything in your power to not lose and cling to life like grim death up until the point in which they put the knife in your chest. That's the way you do competitions. That's the way I only know how to do competitions, especially within the context of chess or competitions I do well. I understand that takes a certain degree of energy, mental and physical. Fair enough. But the more I see and the more I hear from Sanders, yes, he got his ideas out. Yes, he changed the hegemonic pull in regards to issues of the left. Yes, he made you realize that there were tens of millions of you. Yes, he made you realize that your ideas were popular, winning the ideological battle. All of that's true. I take nothing from him. Yes, he gets a $15 an hour minimum wage for Amazon workers. He shames them into it. And he creates a situation where a generation of people coming behind him, for the most part, are going to be accruing to those ideas. You can't undercut that. You just can't. I mean, putting Medicare for all on the block and winning the conversation. Not even like you think back to 2008 under Obama, you couldn't even get Obama to say public option, or barely could get him to say public option. Sanders wins the argument on Medicare for all. He wins the argument on this issue of climate, on the issue of expansion of Social Security. He wins those policy arguments. And yet, Joe Biden is the president. How weird is that? That you can win the policy argument, meaning people say, yeah, I like his ideas better, but then turn around and says, yeah, despite liking his ideas better, I'm still going to go with this other guy. How does that happen? How does that happen? Now, to figure out how that happens, you have to look at the campaigns and the elements of the campaign. And you listen to what the candidate is saying, especially now that he is backing Joe Biden full-throatedly. And he is saying it is utterly irresponsible for people, basically calling his supporters irresponsible if they choose not to back one Joe Biden, the person that he is now endorsing and stomping for. I was reading the Sanders interview, and towards the end of that last part of that interview where he was shucking and jabbing for Joe Biden and basically saying, look, it's irresponsible if you don't go out there and effectively vote for Joe Biden. And again, talking to his supporters over this stuff. And throwing Brianna Joy Gray under the bus at the same time he's throwing us under the bus as irresponsible actors. We sat in that foxhole. We backed him for years. They shit on us for months on end. And for the most part, we took it and still went out as soldiers for his ends. And just like he put a knife in Turner, just like he put a knife in Teach Out, just like he put a knife in Brianna, now in his pursuit of getting Biden elected, now the knife goes into us. A2 Sanders. A2. The catch here is we're not the irresponsible party. The irresponsible party here is actually Sanders. And I got to be honest, I read this last part and I thought, God, I don't understand the naivety in power politics. I mean, this is a man who screams about a revolution. He gets the mob that he's looking for in the context of the revolution, and he becomes a creature of Washington. I don't understand it. It's confusing to me. It's weird to me. You get what you want in regards to the political space and millions of people, and you don't organize those people. Like, think about it for the moment. Think of how big Sanders' email list is. What if Sanders, during the course of this campaign, created a web of all of those people where all of those people can interact and talk and everything else? Yes, it costs money, but you just get a software engineer, let the guy do his job. It's not that complicated to build in regards to a computer system that allows all of these people to talk or whatever. You might even be able to find something off the shelf that already does the job. I guess I'm making the point that one has thing to do with organization going forward, where the movement extends beyond Sanders, where the movement is not just kind of enraptured around Sanders. You're talking about something that is neural and a brain center that can exceed itself, where these people can interact and talk and make their policy debates and arguments in regards to what they want. Basically, the movement exceeds the creator of that movement, or at the very least, the person who is the avatar of that movement. But that's not what happened. And not only not what happened, I'm going to read to you what Sanders said in this last interview. And it gets across a stunning lack of imagination, a stunning lack of gusto and hubris, a stunning lack of political will and intentionality, a stunning lack of knowing the potentials of what can be done and pushing the boundaries of those potentials, especially in the context of somebody who's saying he's trying to tear down the establishment. What do you think the establishment is? Media, the political space? And this is the space that every incentive in the world, trillions of dollars, go into ensuring that that space stay exactly the way that space is. If you're going to try to tear that down, you better have claws and an axe. You better be going there with this kind of negative, mean-spirited intent, with the notion that you're going to leave it all on the table, that everything, for the most part, is going to be laid on the line. You're either going to win that race or you're going to lay bleeding, gripping for your sword or reaching for your axe. That's what I'm talking about in the context of running a real political race, and that's not what happened. Just to put this in perspective, in that interview where Sanders called his people irresponsible, he also says, what would be the sense of staying and spending a whole lot of money attacking the vice president, making fodder for Trump? What's the sense of doing that when you can't win? He said. I will do everything I can to help elect Joe Biden, Sanders continued. We had a contentious campaign. No, you did not have a contentious campaign. That is, I'm sorry, like, no, stop. We disagreed on issues, that's true, but my job is now not only to rally my supporters, but to do everything that I can to bring the party together and see that Trump is not elected president. I hate to tell you this, Sanders. What you are doing, the weakness that you have exhibited, currently exhibiting, the lack of imagination, the lack of political gusto, is patently irresponsible. The fact of the matter is, if you really did want to rally these people behind Joe Biden, it may sound counterintuitive, but the way to do it is not to acquiesce and give in, put on your gimp suit, get back into the Democratic Party. That is not the way to do it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This content is indeed brought to you by you, so I thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so. I want you to hear something. Oh, by the way, I have an interview at 6:30 with Tulsi Gabbard's press assistant, Cullen. Cullen, I think it's called Tiernan, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So that'll be at 6:30, so this video can't be all that long. But I did want to talk about this because it was bugging the hell out of me. Listen to what they asked. When they asked Joe Biden, what are you willing to give Sanders supporters in order to get their support? Straight question.
To become the Democratic presidential nominee, how will you appeal to supporters of Senator Sanders when you do disagree on so many issues?
He's making it hard for me right now. I was trying to give him credit for some things. He won't even take the credit for things he wants to do. Look, I think that I want to make it clear. If Bernie's a nominee, I will not only support him, I will campaign for him. And I believe the people who support me.
Just to be clear, Joe Biden was on the debate stage, and when they said, if the person ends up with the most delegates, are you going to support that candidate? Every last person on that stage who was not named Bernie Sanders said, I would take it to a broker convention and I would rip it out of Sanders' hands if that's what I needed to do in order to win this race. Now, when he's in the advantage, oh yeah, I'm magnanimous and I am willing to, I don't believe you one iota. Don't believe you one iota. I don't believe any of these people one iota. They would have done everything in their power in order to take this from Sanders. Doesn't necessarily mean that Sanders couldn't win it. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not fatalistic in that way. But this is nonsense in comparison to what they were saying a few weeks before.
We will do the same thing because the existential threat to the United States of America is Donald Trump. It's critical.
And by the way, just so we're clear, if they did that to Sanders, if they took him to a brokered convention and ripped it away from Sanders, do you honestly believe that whoever they gave it to would win? Be honest with yourself for the moment. Meaning, the Democratic Party was more interested in stopping Sanders than beating Trump. That, I swear to God, lefties need to full well understand and incorporate that from a gut level, because it is absolutely true. That is literally what would have taken place if they would have done that. That is what they were willing to do in order to keep it out of Sanders' hands. Trump mattered less. Don't buy this shit from Joe Biden.
I would hope that Bernie would do the same thing if I'm the nominee and encourage all of his followers to, in fact, support me as well. Because it's much bigger than either of us. Character of the nation is on the ballot. It goes well beyond whether or not Senator Sanders and I both agree we need health care should be a right, not a privilege. We both.
I'm going to end that here because Joe Biden's healthcare plan leaves several people, 125,000 people die over the course of like 10 years with Joe Biden's healthcare plan. He leaves people uncovered intentionally within the plan. So I don't care about any of this nonsense. What are you willing to give Sanders supporters? Nothing. Donald Trump is a big deal, and Bernie Sanders is going to get his people out there to, go for it. And if you notice in the beginning, the rhetorical flourish, well, I tried to, agree with him on some stuff. He's making it hard. Why? Because he wants to come across verbally sounding as if, yeah, there's some level of space here to which we can agree. But that's just verbal. That's not real world terms. Sanders had already given over all of his political clout by effectively saying, I will support whoever the nominee is, regardless of what they do, regardless of what they say, regardless of how they attack me, regardless of how they attack their supporters. Doesn't matter what their policies are. They have my support. I will sheepdog my supporters into their arms, despite my supporters not getting anything they want out of the process. And not just that. Over the last 40, 50 years, that has been the exact same process to take place. And what have you gotten out of that as you move further and further to the right? Let's keep going. If you want to change your political space, the door you need to walk through is you have nowhere else to go. I am sorry. There is no magical door. You need to line up beyond several policies, popular policies that the population itself agrees with, and you need to tell the political space, do your job. And you're not getting my support until you do your job. And you do that in mass. You get 10 million people behind you, 20 million people behind you saying, yes, I agree with these policies. These aren't connected to a party or any particular thing. Yeah, I think people should have health care. Yeah, I think the government should pay for it. Yes, I think we should have an expansion of Social Security. I think it's insane that we allow people to go into their old age without necessarily being secure, after spending the entirety of their life using their limbs and muscles in order to make the society a better place. Yes, I think we need to get rid of student debt, trillions of dollars on the backs, and you have Wall Street that got to bail out. So yeah, I think you make those policy priorities, and I think you deal with your political system, making the point of, you're not going to give my support. No, I don't have the capacity to win right now, but I have the capacity to make you lose. And again, understand what I just said that the Democratic Party was willing to do. Each and every Democrat was willing to go to the brokered convention and rip it out of Sanders' hands, knowing full well that that would have literally broke the party. And it would have stopped Sanders, yes, but the Democrat would have lost to Trump. Losing to Trump from the standpoint of the party mattered less. Joe Biden has the weakest candidate to run against Trump. It didn't matter. Joe Biden was able to get the black vote. And so everybody coalesced around Joe Biden in order again to stop Sanders. The point of this was to stop Sanders. Sanders winning changes the party fundamentally for a generation. Trump winning does not. It keeps the same power brokers in office. And I hate to tell you this from the standpoint of the material concerns. From a class issue, they don't hate Trump in that sense. They hate Trump for political reasons. My point is this. You've tried for 50 years to get what you want accomplished, bitching, moaning, complaining, browbeating the Democratic Party to give you stuff that they're never going to give you because they don't have those beliefs. And you continuously fold into that party as if that is somehow going to advance what you want on the political space. It is not. It never will, because they don't buy into it. And the fact that they can say you have nowhere else to go and you say, okay, how do you ever get your policy priorities accomplished if you're always willing to acquiesce and fold into the Democratic Party? They don't have to give you anything. It's just like this. Sanders had already given over his support. So Sanders had no leverage in this process because Sanders had already given over his support. So Biden doesn't have to give Sanders anything. If you have a large number of people who are willing to do exactly what the Democratic Party did in this race, those are the levels to which they were willing to exist in order to stop Sanders, having Trump win. So what does that mean for you? If you are not willing to do similar tactics and be willing to fight on those terms in that particular environment, it's not that the environment is great. It's more so that that's an environment to which you have right now. Basically, you don't have the capacity to win because your guy flamed out, but you do have the capacity to make them lose. If you have millions of people that are willing to say you are not getting my vote unless you're pulling these particular policy priorities, then you're able to create a test for the party itself. They can accept or they can deny it, meaning they can go into that particular election not accepting Medicare for all, not accepting the Green New Deal. And maybe there's compromise between those things in regards to what you accept. But Sanders is not coming to you empty-handed in the case that Biden, who may actually want to win this race, acquiesces to various policies. Listen to Sanders, who makes the point that, look, I'm going to try to get Biden elected, but I don't know if he can get elected. But you didn't make this argument over the course of the last few weeks. You should have been making this argument over the course of the last few weeks. You didn't do that. Kerry, loss. Al Gore, loss. Hillary Clinton, loss. Joe Biden is just the same creature. The radical in the race in 2008, Obama won. And you say that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Every time you open your mouth, it comes out of your mouth because you need to make the argument about electability that you are just electable, if not more so, than this guy over here that can barely get his name out. And every mistake that Joe Biden makes gets put in the context of him being not electable because you've been droning on about the electability argument. You face that argument head on, not pretend as if the argument don't exist. And yes, just because of the way and the debate in this case, it needs to stick. It needs to hurt. It needs to stand in the public's consciousness when you are making that point that I am the one that is more electable in this race. I am the one with the less weaknesses against Trump. And you enumerate the weaknesses that Joe Biden has against Trump. Yes, it's brutal, but it is politics. And the point of this politics is to win. This is a game of power in this case, right? And yet, the revolutionary doesn't seem to know how to use the mob. But he's fully aware that Joe Biden will most likely lose, all things being equal, take the coronavirus, so, if there's a wild card. But say that wasn't there, that Joe Biden, because he can't harness the youth vote, having these octogenarians and septuagenarians knocking on doors in their little shorts, it's not going to fly.
Can I just say a word, then I'll respond to you?
Well, it's just a quick question, which is, if he is the nominee, Vice President Biden, you've already said you would support him.
Of course.
But will you campaign for him? Will you urge your supporters to
on
support
day one, when I announced my candidacy, what I said is this country cannot deal with a president who is a pathological liar, who is running a corrupt administration, who obviously doesn't know the Constitution of the United States, who believes it's above the law, who is a racist and a sexist and a homophobe. He is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. And what I said on day one, Joe, day one, that obviously I hope to win the nomination. But if I don't win the nomination, and I think every other Democratic candidate is prepared to come together to do everything humanly possible to defeat Donald Trump.
No, that's not true. Not for you. They would have did it for everyone else. Not for you. This is the naivety I'm talking about. You gave over all of your leverage and all of your power on day one that you entered that race. This is the point that I'm pointing out. Suppose Sanders didn't do that. Suppose he didn't do that. Suppose he kept his group. Suppose he never said, I am just going to unilaterally give over my support. And he ran the race in the way he ran the race. Now, this is the catch. I want him to make the point, because if he makes the argument, basically, that Joe Biden is going to have a hard time winning this race. And yet, that's not necessarily the argument that he made during the campaign.
But let me respond to something that Joe said. You know, we talk about the Green New Deal and all of these things in general terms, but details make a difference. What I have said throughout this campaign, and I don't think I've heard you say this, Joe, is that if we are going to save this planet for our kids and future generations, we need to have the courage to take on the greed of the fossil fuel industry and make it clear to them that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And we have a very detailed proposal. Happy to get the endorsement of the Sunrise Movement, the young people.
We're going to get into the Green New Deal.
Okay.
We're going to talk about climate change. We have to squeeze in a quick break. When we come back to CNN.
Look, in this debate, Sanders makes the argument that if you don't have the energy necessary in this campaign, you're going to have a hard time winning this race, talking about the general election. Yes, what I would wish a little bit more revolutionary. You've ran the race up to the point that you ran the race, so fair enough. But there's something to be said about harnessing millions of people that you have at your disposal. Call a press conference. Say, make up any reason, look, I don't think Joe Biden can win this race. And we, both of us, Joe, have Joe Biden sitting right there. Call him too. Have him a video conference. Surprise him. Say, look, I don't blame all of these people who don't support you. Because basically, those people want Medicare for all, they want Social Security expansion, they want Green New Deal, they want to get rid of student debt. And look, all of these are popular by the American public. You need to do your job, Joe. And so I'm going to be standing. Yes, you have my personal endorsement, you have my personal vote, but I totally understand why all of these groups are not going to back you until you back these plans. So yes, I'm also standing with these groups, but you do have my endorsement and you have my vote. Now, that's like, what? The media will flip out. Politicians will flip out. Sanders should drop the mic, cut the signal, have sex with his wife. Now, his lefties will love him for this. And the hope is that you start getting more people to accrue to that point of view of, hey, he's not wrong on this. Look at these policies. I like these policies. You've just had this major press conference. You've just sent a major shockwave in the political space. The media has to cover it. So the question becomes, what's the effect of that? I don't entirely know. Maybe you get a somewhat of a lightning rod where people start lumping into your particular cause. Maybe you don't. But I do know the effect of what's taking place now. Life is not something to be, let's say, ran lightly, especially in the space to which you are running. You need to be running at the top and singing at the top of your lungs, bare-chested. Yes, running through danger, not necessarily fearless, but definitely running in somewhat of a dangerous way with the notion that you're laying it all on the line because everything is at stake. That's not necessarily a bad place to be, but you need to be fearless in that particular position. And like I say, you better come for bear, considering what is taking place in regards to all the things that keeps the established order in the way that established order is. I'm sorry, that's just not the way you ran that race. All of his leverage was given over on day one. If Sanders had the opportunity to use that mob, he could have used that mob in order to get political concessions, potentially. Even now, he could come out in a press conference today and say, look, I don't believe he can win this race, at least not without my supporters. And my supporters require Medicare for all, Green New Deal, and elimination of student debt. I know I'm not going to get everything, but they need something in order to make that work, and a task force is not enough. There I am. Bam. Close it out. And start sending that email list telling your supporters, we should not vote for Joe Biden until Joe Biden do so-and-so. And people are going to say, oh, God, that's unethical. He promised to do X. He promised to do Y. The issue here becomes, I don't think he can win. Now, that's a fig leaf, yes. But that's all you need, right? And ultimately, you need to compel the respect of a party that for the most part has maligned and disrespected the left because the left had nowhere else to go. And regardless of what happened to the left, the political equivalent of a battered wife, the left always went back, even now. Sanders are going to shuck and jive and get many of these lefties back into the party, despite calling them racist, sexist, bigoted, bros, angry whites, abusive to women, a foundation of hate based on what Elizabeth Warren was saying. They've talked about us like a dog for like a year. And those lefties are still going to go right back into the party. The only reason that Democrats can talk about you like that is because they knew you were going to get back into the party at the very end. They understood the level of lack of self-respect that's there. Brandon Adams, Bernie endorsed Biden in 2016, 2020, hashtag shame on me twice. Shame on me indeed. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.